He was family, the one person Ibrahim Traoré trusted more than anyone. But one day, that trust would break in the most shocking way. When betrayal comes from someone you love, it cuts deeper than any enemy ever could. How could someone so close turn on you? It all started with a feeling that something wasn't right. Ibrahim Traoré, the president of Burkina Faso, was used to dealing with danger and pressure. His country was in a tough fight, and every day brought new challenges. But lately, his heart felt heavy. Something felt off. His cousin, the man who had always stood by him, had begun to act strange. At first, it was nothing big, but soon Ibrahim started noticing little things. His cousin was making late-night phone calls, talking in whispers. The calls were never to anyone Ibrahim knew, always foreign numbers. Every time Ibrahim asked about it, his cousin would smile and brush it off. "Just business, Ibrahim," he'd say. But there was something in his eyes, something that didn't match his words. The whispers in Ibrahim's mind grew louder. Was something wrong? Then it got worse. His cousin began leaving the house at odd times. Sometimes he was gone for hours. Ibrahim had always trusted him, but now his cousin was becoming more distant, more secretive. When Ibrahim asked where he had been, his cousin always had an excuse. But the more Ibrahim asked, the more he began to feel the weight of a question growing inside him. What is my cousin hiding? It wasn't until Ibrahim received an anonymous tip that his heart really began to sink. The message was short, but it hit like a hammer. "Your cousin is meeting with people who want you gone." Ibrahim's stomach dropped. Could it be true? His cousin? The one person who had always been there for him? How could this be happening? That same night, Ibrahim called in his most trusted officers. He needed answers. The officers didn't waste time. They kept an eye on his cousin, and what they found was terrifying. His cousin had been meeting with foreign diplomats, people who weren't friendly to Burkina Faso. They were the same people who wanted to see Ibrahim's leadership fall. Ibrahim's heart pounded. Could this really be happening? Could his cousin really be part of something like this? He decided to follow the trail. Ibrahim's officers soon reported that his cousin had been at a high-end hotel in the city, a place used by foreign diplomats. It wasn't just the hotel that bothered Ibrahim. It was who his cousin had been meeting with. He had met with Jean-Marc Dufresne, a French diplomat known for his connections to groups that wanted to destroy Ibrahim's government. The betrayal was getting bigger, more real. His cousin had been lying. Not just about his whereabouts, but about everything. The pieces were coming together. Ibrahim couldn't sleep that night. The truth had hit him like a storm. His own blood, his cousin, was working with enemies of the nation. Betrayal, the worst kind of betrayal. The kind that came from family. The next day, Ibrahim could no longer ignore the truth. He had to confront his cousin. He had to look him in the eye and find out exactly what was going on. Ibrahim called him to his office. When his cousin walked into the room, the tension was unbearable. Ibrahim's heart was heavy. He had trusted this man his whole life, and now everything was about to change. Without a word, Ibrahim stood up and said, "I know everything." His cousin froze. The room felt like it was closing in. Ibrahim didn't wait for his cousin to speak. He laid it all out. "I know you've been meeting with Dufresne. I know you've been working with people who want to destroy me, destroy this country." The silence between them was deafening. Then, slowly, his cousin spoke. "I didn't want to do it, Ibrahim. They promised me power, money. They said I could have everything." Ibrahim's heart was broken. His cousin wasn't just betraying him. He was betraying the entire country, everything they had worked for. The truth was out. The person Ibrahim had trusted more than anyone else had turned on him. Betrayal. The worst kind. And now Ibrahim had to face the consequences. Would he punish his family, or would he let this betrayal tear apart everything he had fought for? The weight of the decision was too much to bear. But Ibrahim knew what he had to do. The future of his country was at stake. The storm had come, and now there was no going back. The next few days felt like a nightmare. Ibrahim couldn't shake the feeling that he was surrounded by enemies, even inside his own house. His cousin's betrayal was only the beginning. Ibrahim had always prided himself on trusting those closest to him, but now doubt hung over everything. Every handshake, every conversation felt like a hidden threat. He couldn't even trust the people he had known all his life. Ibrahim's first move was to quietly strengthen his security. He doubled the guards at the gates and began to monitor all phone calls and messages coming into the house. But even with all these precautions, there was something else that bothered him. It was the silence. His cousin had always been quick to explain himself, but now, when confronted, he said nothing. He had admitted to meeting with foreign diplomats, but there was more to the story. Ibrahim needed to know everything: who his cousin was working with, what plans they had, and how deep this betrayal ran. Late at night, Ibrahim would sit in his office, staring at the walls, trying to piece together the puzzle. Why? Why would his cousin betray him like this? What had they promised him? Power? Wealth? Had his cousin always been a liar, or had something more dangerous pulled him into this? And there were still questions about Jean-Marc Dufresne, the French diplomat his cousin had been meeting with. The name sent a chill down Ibrahim's spine. Dufresne had always been known for his connections to groups that wanted to undermine African leaders. But this wasn't just politics, it was personal. Dufresne was not just any foreign diplomat. He was a key figure in a network of people who wanted to see Burkina Faso fall. Ibrahim could no longer ignore the fact that this betrayal went beyond just his cousin. His cousin was only a pawn. Dufresne was the real threat. And behind Dufresne, there were powerful forces, foreign governments, business interests, people who would stop at nothing to see Ibrahim's government crumble. That night, Ibrahim made a decision. He would confront Dufresne, but first he needed to confirm something that would give him the final proof he needed. He turned to his intelligence team. Ibrahim had always trusted them, but now, more than ever, he needed results. He ordered them to find out everything about Dufresne's movements, his connections in Burkina Faso, and his ties to anyone inside Ibrahim's government. He needed the full picture. The next few days brought new information. The intelligence reports were clearer than before. Dufresne had been meeting not only with Ibrahim's cousin, but also with several other influential people in the country. These meetings were not just about diplomacy. They were about weakening Ibrahim's government from the inside. The pieces were falling into place, but there was still more to learn. Ibrahim needed to know who else his cousin had been speaking to. He needed to understand how many people were involved in this plot. What if his cousin wasn't the only one working with Dufresne? What if there were others inside his own circle? Ibrahim could feel the walls closing in on him. He wasn't just fighting a war anymore. He was fighting a war for survival. The people he had trusted most were now the ones working against him. The weight of leadership had never felt heavier. The next day, Ibrahim's worst fears came true. A new report came in. His cousin, who had been kept under surveillance, had slipped out again. He was seen meeting with more foreign agents, including people tied directly to Dufresne's network. Ibrahim knew then that the betrayal went deeper than he had ever imagined. This was no longer about just one person. It was about a plan to destroy everything Ibrahim had worked for. Ibrahim's heart was heavy. His cousin wasn't just working with foreign agents. He was part of something far bigger. A dangerous game was being played, and Ibrahim was at the center of it. But he wouldn't back down. Ibrahim Traoré had always fought for his country, and now he would fight for his life. The storm wasn't over. It was just beginning. Days turned into sleepless nights. Ibrahim Traoré couldn't escape the gnawing feeling that his world was crumbling around him. His cousin's betrayal had been just the beginning, and now it seemed as though everyone he trusted had become a threat. But it wasn't just about his cousin anymore. Ibrahim had learned something much worse. There was a network of people, inside and outside of Burkina Faso, working together to bring him down. The evidence kept piling up. His cousin's meetings with foreign diplomats weren't just about sharing secrets. They were about planning. These weren't innocent conversations. They were discussions about how to weaken Burkina Faso's government, how to make Ibrahim's leadership fall. The reports were more detailed now, but the deeper Ibrahim looked, the darker the picture became. His intelligence officers had uncovered something shocking. His cousin was involved in a plan to secretly hand over control of vital resources in Burkina Faso to foreign powers. His cousin had been meeting with business leaders who had ties to powerful Western countries, and these meetings were about selling off parts of the country's economy, gold mines, transport routes, and natural resources to those who would exploit them for profit. It was not just about power or money for his cousin. It was about selling his country's future. Ibrahim's blood ran cold. The betrayal had gone beyond just a few shady meetings. His cousin was involved in a plot that could destroy the entire country's future. Ibrahim couldn't stay still any longer. He had to act. He couldn't let this treason go unchecked. Every minute that passed made the danger to Burkina Faso grow stronger. The foreign powers that were behind this plot were not playing games. They had resources, they had influence, and they had one goal: to take down Ibrahim and take control of Burkina Faso's wealth. The breaking point came when Ibrahim received a secret message from his most trusted ally. It was a message that revealed the full extent of his cousin's betrayal. The diplomat, Jean-Marc Dufresne, wasn't just trying to influence political decisions in Burkina Faso. He was leading a coordinated attack on Ibrahim's government, working with enemies inside the country. There was a plan in motion to oust Ibrahim and replace him with a puppet leader who would do the bidding of foreign powers. The realization hit Ibrahim like a punch to the stomach. His cousin wasn't just a spy. He was an active participant in a plot to destroy everything Ibrahim had fought for. His country, his people, were at risk. And the betrayal came from the one person he never expected. Ibrahim's mind raced. He had always trusted his cousin. They had grown up together, shared dreams of a better future for their country. And now, that very trust had been shattered. How could it be true? How could the one person closest to him turn into the very thing that would bring his country down? With the truth in front of him, Ibrahim knew what he had to do. He had to take action. He couldn't let this betrayal continue. The country's future depended on him. Ibrahim summoned his cousin to his office once again. This time, the confrontation would be different. This wasn't just about asking questions. This was about the future of Burkina Faso. It was about exposing the full truth. When his cousin walked into the room, Ibrahim stood up, his eyes filled with determination. He wasn't going to back down. Not now, not ever. "I know everything," Ibrahim said, his voice cold but strong. "I know about the meetings, the deals, the plans to sell out this country. I know what you've been doing." His cousin's face went pale. For a moment, he didn't say anything, but Ibrahim saw the guilt in his eyes. It was there, clear as day. "You've been working with foreign agents, betraying me, betraying this country," Ibrahim continued. "You've been part of a plan to destroy everything we've built." His cousin's hands trembled. His eyes darted away, unable to meet Ibrahim's gaze. I didn't mean for it to go this far," he stammered. "I thought I could control it. I thought I could protect you. They promised me power, wealth. I thought it was just a few deals. Nothing too serious." Ibrahim's heart broke as he listened. Power, wealth. That's all it had taken to turn his cousin against him. But Ibrahim didn't flinch. He had no room for weakness. He had to protect the future of Burkina Faso, no matter the cost. "This is more than just a few deals," Ibrahim said. "This is about the future of our people, our country. You've been a part of something bigger than you ever realized. And now you will face the consequences." His cousin's face crumpled, the reality of his actions sinking in. But Ibrahim couldn't feel sorry for him. This wasn't about family. This was about loyalty to the people of Burkina Faso. Ibrahim turned away, his eyes staring out the window. He felt the weight of his decision pressed down on him. His cousin had chosen his path, and now there was no turning back. The storm was no longer just a whisper in the distance. It was here. Ibrahim Traoré was fighting for more than just his leadership. He was fighting for the future of Burkina Faso, and no one, not even family, could stand in his way. The war for his country had begun. Ibrahim couldn't keep the storm inside any longer. His cousin, the man who had once shared everything with him, had betrayed him and the whole country. Every minute that passed felt like a weight on his chest. Ibrahim had been calm up until now, but the pain of betrayal was eating away at him. He couldn't allow this treason to destroy everything he had worked for. The country needed a leader who would act swiftly and decisively. And that leader had to be Ibrahim. The decision had been made. He couldn't run away from the truth anymore. His cousin was no longer just a family member. He was a threat to the future of Burkina Faso. Ibrahim stood up from his desk, his hands shaking, but his face hard. He had to face his cousin. His cousin had to face the consequences. He called his cousin to his office once more. This time, there would be no avoiding the truth. The betrayal could not be swept under the rug. Ibrahim had spent the past few days wrestling with his thoughts. He couldn't let his heart cloud his judgment. This wasn't just family. This was a fight for the soul of his country. As his cousin entered the room, Ibrahim couldn't bring himself to look him in the eyes. But when he spoke, his voice was steady, cold. "I know everything," Ibrahim said. The words felt heavy as they left his lips. "I know about the meetings with Jean-Marc Dufresne. I know you've been working with foreign powers to destroy this country." His cousin's face went pale. His mouth opened and closed, as if searching for words, but no sound came out. Ibrahim could see the fear in his cousin's eyes, but that didn't matter. The truth was out. "You've been selling our future, our people's future, for money and power. You've betrayed me, and you've betrayed this country," Ibrahim continued, his voice now rising with the weight of the revelation. "You've been plotting behind my back, working with the very people who want to see us fall." His cousin's face twisted in pain. "Ibrahim, I didn't want it to go this far. I thought I could control it. They promised me power, riches. I didn't know it would destroy everything." Ibrahim clenched his fists. The betrayal felt like a knife in his chest. He had trusted this man with everything. To think that his own cousin could be part of something so dangerous, so deadly, it broke his heart. But there was no time for emotion. The country was on the brink, and Ibrahim couldn't afford to hesitate. His responsibility was to the people of Burkina Faso. He had to protect them, even if it meant destroying the person closest to him. "You made your choice," Ibrahim said firmly, "and now you will face the consequences." His cousin's eyes filled with tears, but Ibrahim didn't flinch. He had to stay strong. This wasn't about family anymore. This was about leadership. The room grew heavy with silence. His cousin stared at him, his hands trembling. "Please, Ibrahim, please don't do this. I never meant for things to go this far." Ibrahim's heart was torn, but his face remained cold. "It's too late for that. You've already crossed the line, and there's no going back." His cousin sank into the chair, his face buried in his hands. But Ibrahim didn't allow himself to feel pity. He couldn't. His people needed him. The country needed him. Without another word, Ibrahim turned to his officers. "Take him away," he ordered. His cousin stood up, defeated. "I'm sorry, Ibrahim. I'm sorry." But Ibrahim didn't respond. His eyes stayed fixed ahead, the weight of his decision pressing down on him. He had made the choice to protect Burkina Faso, and nothing could change that now. As the door closed behind his cousin, Ibrahim stood alone in his office. His chest tightened as the reality of the situation sank in. He had just condemned his own blood. The pain was unbearable, but there was no room for weakness. The storm outside was nothing compared to the storm inside Ibrahim's heart. He had just taken a step that could change the course of his country forever. And as the minutes ticked by, Ibrahim knew that this was just the beginning. The true battle for Burkina Faso was about to begin. Ibrahim Traoré had always been a man of strength, but now he would need every ounce of that strength to face what was coming next. The storm was far from over. The days following the confrontation with his cousin were the hardest Ibrahim had ever faced. He couldn't escape the pain of what he had done. To expose his cousin, to make public the betrayal that had shaken him to his core. It felt like tearing apart a part of his own soul. But he knew there was no other choice. His country needed to see that there would be no mercy for treason, no matter who the traitor was. Ibrahim knew the consequences of keeping such a secret. If his cousin's betrayal stayed hidden, it would spread like poison through the country. People would lose faith in him, and worse, the foreign powers who had been working to undermine him would think they had won. They would see weakness, and they would strike harder. The weight of leadership had never felt heavier. Ibrahim had spent days in his office, wrestling with the decision, but it became clear. He had to make an example of his cousin. The people needed to know that no one, no matter their position, their relationship to him, or their loyalty, was above the law. He called for a press conference. The news spread quickly. The whole nation would watch. The day of the public exposure arrived. Ibrahim stood before the camera, his heart racing, his face a mask of resolve. Behind him, his cousin was led into the room, his hands bound. The once proud man, the one who had shared so many moments with Ibrahim, now looked broken. His eyes were downcast, his steps slow. The crowd watched in stunned silence. Ibrahim didn't waste time. "I stand here today not just as a leader, but as a man who must protect the future of Burkina Faso," he began, his voice steady. "A few days ago, I learned of a betrayal that goes deeper than anything I could have imagined. The man standing before you, the one who once stood by my side, is guilty of treason. He has been working with foreign powers to undermine our government, to sell the future of this country for personal gain." The room was filled with gasps. His cousin, standing there with his head down, didn't meet anyone's gaze. Ibrahim could see the shame on his face. But there was something else, a hint of fear. The truth had come out, and now there was no escaping it. "I know that many of you may have trusted him. Many of you may have seen him as a friend, as family. But the law must always come first. The future of our people, the future of Burkina Faso, cannot be held hostage by betrayal." Ibrahim's voice grew stronger with every word. "I will not let anyone tear this country apart. No one, no matter their relationship to me, is above the law." The silence in the room was deafening. Ibrahim could feel the eyes of the nation on him. This was not just a moment of personal pain for him. This was a test of his leadership. The people were watching to see if he had the strength to make the hard decisions. As his cousin was led away, Ibrahim turned to face the crowd. His chest was tight, but he didn't show it. He couldn't afford to. This was his country, his responsibility. And in that moment, Ibrahim knew the weight of his decision would follow him for the rest of his life. As the news spread across the nation, the reactions were mixed. Some praised Ibrahim for his courage, for showing the world that he would not tolerate betrayal, no matter where it came from. But others, his cousin's supporters, the people who had trusted him, were shocked. How could Ibrahim betray his own family? Was he truly the leader they thought he was? The uncertainty in the air was palpable. The country had just witnessed something no one could ignore: the power of loyalty and the cost of betrayal. Ibrahim's leadership was being tested in ways he never imagined. But as the days went on, Ibrahim knew that what he had done was right. He had made the hardest decision of his life, but he had done it for Burkina Faso, for the people who had put their trust in him. And now the rest of the world would know that Ibrahim Traoré would never back down. No matter who it was, no matter what it cost, he would fight to protect his country and its future. The public exposure was a turning point. Ibrahim had taken the hardest step, but it was only the beginning. The battle was far from over. And now, more than ever, Ibrahim understood the price of leadership. The hardest fights weren't just against enemies outside. They were against the betrayal and division that could rise from within. And as he stood in front of the camera, he knew that the hardest part of this war had just begun. The moment the news broke, everything changed. Ibrahim Traoré had taken the hardest step of his life, but the aftermath was anything but simple. The nation was divided. People who had once praised him for his strong leadership now questioned his decisions. His cousin had been a trusted figure in their community. To many, he was family, a symbol of hope in the country's darkest times. How could Ibrahim do this? How could he expose the man he had grown up with, the man he had called a brother? In the weeks that followed, rumors began to swirl. Some whispered that Ibrahim's decision was a sign of weakness. If he can betray his own family, who will he betray next? They said. Others felt a deep sense of betrayal themselves, not from Ibrahim, but from the man they had trusted. They felt lost, uncertain, confused about where the future was heading. The most dangerous part of this fallout was the rising division. Some saw Ibrahim as a hero, someone who had shown strength in the face of unimaginable pain. They believed his decision was necessary to protect the country and its future. These were the people who stood with him, who rallied behind his leadership and were ready to face the coming storms. But there were others, his cousin's supporters, and those who had been quietly against his leadership from the beginning, who saw this moment as their chance to strike. The media, both local and foreign, began to spin stories. Some painted Ibrahim as a ruthless leader who sacrificed his family for power. Others accused him of being too quick to expose his cousin, claiming he had overreacted and caused unnecessary chaos. The pressure from outside the country was growing as well. Foreign powers, who had once tried to weaken Ibrahim's leadership, now saw an opening. If even his own cousin couldn't be trusted, they whispered, how can anyone trust his government? The enemies of Burkina Faso had always been looking for cracks, and now they saw a way to push harder, to exploit the growing doubt among the people. Ibrahim's heart was heavy. He had hoped that the people would understand the necessity of his decision. He had hoped they would see the bigger picture, the threat to the country, the future of the people, and the cost of inaction. But in times of crisis, the lines between right and wrong were never clear. And now the people were looking to him for answers, for guidance in a world that seemed to be falling apart. Behind closed doors, Ibrahim met with his closest allies. His advisors, the ministers, the military leaders, those who still believed in his vision for Burkina Faso. But even in these private meetings, the tension was palpable. Some of his own people had begun to question his judgment. His cousin had been a well-liked figure, respected by many. Was Ibrahim's decision to expose him truly the right one? Or had he made a mistake that would cost him everything? One evening, Ibrahim sat in his office, alone. His mind was racing. He thought back to the day he had confronted his cousin, the pain in his chest, the weight of the decision, the face of the man he had trusted most in the world. His cousin had cried, pleaded, begged for mercy, and Ibrahim had stood firm, knowing that what he did was necessary, no matter the cost. But now, with the country divided, Ibrahim wasn't so sure. Was he too harsh? Had he alienated those who could have helped him? Could he still lead the country through this crisis? Or had he just made things worse? He stared out of his office window, the city lights flickering below him, the distant sounds of life continuing as normal. The weight of the world was on his shoulders. He had made his decision, but the consequences were still unfolding. The future of Burkina Faso was still in his hands, but the road ahead was more uncertain than ever. Then, late one night, Ibrahim received a message. It was from a trusted ally, someone he had known for years. The message was short, but the weight of it hit Ibrahim like a ton of bricks. "Your cousin's betrayal is bigger than we thought. There are others involved, and the enemy is already moving." Ibrahim's blood ran cold. The betrayal wasn't just his cousin anymore. It was a whole network, people inside and outside the government who were working against him. The storm had only just begun, and now it was threatening to tear everything apart. He knew what he had to do. The fight for Burkina Faso's future was far from over. His cousin had made a choice, and now Ibrahim had to make his. But this time, it wasn't just about family. It was about the survival of the nation itself. Ibrahim Traoré was no stranger to tough decisions. But as the fallout from his cousin's betrayal spread, he understood one thing more clearly than ever. Leadership was not about making the right decisions. It was about living with the consequences and finding a way to move forward, no matter how hard the road ahead might be. And so, with a heavy heart but a determined spirit, Ibrahim prepared for what came next. The true battle had just begun. The weeks following the public exposure of his cousin's betrayal had been filled with chaos. The country was divided. The people were unsure of what to believe, and some even began to question Ibrahim's ability to lead. The doubts that had been planted in the hearts of the people were growing, and the external threats were closing in. Burkina Faso had been weakened, and Ibrahim knew that the fight for his country's future was far from over. But in these dark times, Ibrahim Traoré had learned one thing. He could never show weakness. His leadership had been tested in ways he never expected, and now it was time to act decisively. There was no room for hesitation. The future of his people was at stake. Ibrahim sat in his office late one night, staring at the maps and reports spread across his desk. The information was clear. Burkina Faso was surrounded. Foreign powers were circling like vultures, waiting for any opportunity to take advantage of the situation. The betrayal was no longer just an internal crisis. It had opened the door for enemies to strike. They saw weakness, and they would do anything to exploit it. He had already dealt with his cousin, but that was just the beginning. The betrayal ran deeper than anyone had imagined. There were people within the government, people he had trusted, who had worked with the enemy. The web of corruption and betrayal stretched far wider than he realized. It wasn't just about dealing with one man anymore. It was about cleaning out the rot that had infected his government. Ibrahim knew what he had to do. The decision was difficult, but it was clear. He would have to purge those who had betrayed him. The traitors would be exposed, and the people would see that there would be no mercy for those who sold out Burkina Faso. But the purge wasn't just about exposing enemies. It was about restoring the people's faith in him. Ibrahim had to show the country that he was still the leader they needed, the leader they could trust. The people were afraid of instability, afraid of the future. Ibrahim understood that fear. But he also understood that fear could be turned into strength. He called an emergency meeting with his closest allies, the generals, the ministers, and his most trusted advisors. The room was tense. Everyone knew the gravity of the situation. Ibrahim stood at the front of the room, his gaze steady and unyielding. "This country is divided," he began, his voice strong, "but we will not let division destroy us. We will fight for the future of Burkina Faso, no matter the cost. The people are watching us, and they are waiting for us to lead. We will expose the traitors in our government, and we will rebuild what has been broken." He looked around the room, meeting the eyes of those he trusted. This is not just about me or my cousin. This is about the soul of our nation, and we will protect it. The plan was set in motion. Ibrahim's allies went to work, identifying the traitors and preparing to make the necessary moves. It was going to be difficult, but it had to be done. The day of reckoning arrived. Ibrahim stood before the nation, ready to make his final declaration. The people were gathered, their eyes fixed on him. The moment of truth had come. Today, Ibrahim said, his voice filled with conviction, we take back our country. We expose the traitors who have worked with foreign powers to undermine our government. These people who have betrayed the trust of the people will face justice. We will not allow anyone to weaken Burkina Faso. The future belongs to the people, and we will fight for it. He paused, allowing his words to sink in. The air was thick with tension. The fight is not over, Ibrahim continued, but we have shown the world that we will never be broken. No matter what happens, we will stand tall. Burkina Faso is stronger than the forces that seek to destroy us. As the announcement was made, the traitors within the government were exposed. They were arrested, tried, and held accountable for their actions. The people, despite the fear and uncertainty that had plagued them, rallied behind Ibrahim. They saw the strength in his leadership. They saw that he had the courage to make the hardest decisions, no matter the cost. In the days that followed, the nation began to heal. The people understood that the road ahead would not be easy, but they also knew that their leader, Ibrahim Traoré, had faced the storm with unyielding strength. He had shown them that no matter the betrayal, no matter the threat, Burkina Faso would survive. Ibrahim stood by the window in his office, looking out over the city. The weight of leadership still pressed on him, but for the first time in weeks, he felt a sense of peace. The worst was behind him. He had faced the darkness, and he had emerged stronger. The story of Ibrahim Traoré's leadership would be told for generations. A man who had faced betrayal, division, and fear, and had emerged victorious. He had led Burkina Faso through its darkest hour, and in the end, the people knew one thing for certain. Ibrahim Traoré would do whatever it took to protect them. The battle was won, but the true fight for Burkina Faso's future had just begun.